Muhammad Ali showed up to my fight. I was probably 10 years old and visited in Dearborn. I went to meet him. I wrote him a letter. That letter I gave him, I left my phone number in that letter. The very next day, the phone rang. I said, hello, who's this? It was Muhammad Ali. And my heart just started beating. Then when I was 20 years old at the palace, he surprised me in the locker room and walked in. The pressure was on me like never before. I said, there's no way in the hell am I losing this fight. I ended up knocking out the guy in the first round.
The Arabian Prince, Tarick Salmaci.
Can I ask you a personal question? For them to look at Tariq as successful, he should have been world champion. Does it bother you that people might look down on your career because you never made it to that level?
To be honest, looking back, my father put pressure on me to do well.
Do you think your father pushed you beyond what you wanted to be pushed?
He wanted me to, there was no losing. I wanted to make the Olympics, to make him proud of me of making the Olympics. One day I'm driving, I get a phone call, and it was a producer, Mark Burnett, producer, Survivor, Apprentice. I got Sylvester Stallone on the phone here with me. And Mark Burnett's telling me that they're doing a reality show about boxing.
Talk to me about the hardest day of your career.
13 years old. You know, as a kid, you might get frustrated and you want to quit boxing. Everyone wants to quit. They might quit and come back 10 times. One time I said that. I had one of those things with the trophies like crazy all over the place, you know? This is how much my father wanted me to succeed. I'm going to tell you how much he loved me. He broke every single one of my trophies. I swear to God.
Everyone wants to become an athlete. When you hit the professional level and you perform on a world-class stage, it's very intriguing to understand what kind of person it takes to do that. Tariq was a professional boxer. He picked up a pair of gloves when he was 8 years old and he made a career out of it. We talk about his father and how much he pushed him. We talk about his interactions with Muhammad Ali. There was so much to unpack from this episode, so stay tuned. If you've ever enjoyed an episode of this podcast, I ask you to subscribe because that makes the podcast get bigger and bigger and it helps me grow this platform and share our story. And with that being said, let's get the show started.
Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب بمدينة القدس العربية.
Tariq, welcome to Not From Here. Tariq, the way I start this off usually is self-introduction on your part. In a way of self-reflection though. So when Tariq looks at himself, who does he see?
I see a proud Arab American, born and raised in America, living out his dreams, doing my best to succeed in America, following in the footsteps of my grandfather, Albert Saleh, who migrated here in the 40s, was successful, lived the American dream. So that's who I am. I'm a proud Arab American.
How did you end up here? You mentioned your grandfather. Was he the first from your family to emigrate here?
He was. My grandfather was the very first to emigrate in the 40s from Lebanon. He came and they migrated to the south end of Dearborn on Dix Avenue. So my mother was actually born in America. My grandfather she's one of 10 kids in the family. There's probably, out of those 10 kids, my mother has, like I said, 5 brothers, 5 sisters, now 4 brothers. All irhamu to her brother. They migrated, like I said, my grandfather migrated in the 40s. 10 kids. Out of those 10 kids, there's about over 70 grandchildren in our family. So I'm the very first grandchild.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
you're the oldest?
The oldest one. So my grandfather, with no education, like many of people who migrated here for an opportunity, to live the American dream. He started out as a door-to-door salesman and then went from there to support his family, selling furniture or household items out of back of a Suburban. It was called Salah. My grandfather's a Salah. It was called Salah Home Supply at first. And then his boys did the same thing. They had a business. It was called Albert's Home Supplies. Then from there, he opened his first furniture store, Albert's Furniture, back in the early 80s, and opened multiple furniture stores from there. So my grandfather was a really successful Arab American who lived the American dream. He also, many people don't know, who know our family, he actually owned, when he migrated, he helped a lot of people out. He owned all the apartment buildings in the south end of Dearborn, and he would place Arab American families who migrated here into those apartment buildings back in like the early 70s and through the 80s.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be the oldest grandchild? Do you get any special treatment if you have 70 cousins?
You know, well, coming from a big family, I mean, you got your good, you got your positive and negatives.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I think when I was younger, I was getting a lot more special treatment. But as you get older, within the mix, you got so many kids now.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of my first cousins are like under the age of 10.
Oh,
You know,
right now.
yeah, some of my first cousins. And then they have kids as well. So we have a large family.
Do you like
Supportive.
that, or do you kind of prefer a smaller?
No,
family?
I mean, large families are great. I mean, always something going on.
Yeah.
And you get the support. But then again, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly with large families.
What's the ugly?
You know, you're going to get people to see. You know how it is, large families. You're always going to have your, the black sheep of the family. You have them always, you know, causing controversy, causing issues. But it's all good. I get along with everybody in my family.
Okay, that's awesome. You growing up here, right? How many siblings do you have?
I have one brother, one sister, younger brother, 3 years younger than me, and a younger sister, about 9 years younger than me.
And you start boxing at 8 years old, correct?
Correct.
How were the years leading up to that in your household? Like, describe your household for me.
Working, my father worked to support us. Again, he had no education as well. He grew up in the streets basically in Lebanon, in the villages, and he came here to get a better life. Met my mother. They got married. Growing up, he was always working. My dad worked at the factory. My dad owned party stores as well, so he was nonstop working. My mother would be helping him out as well at the store as well, and she had to raise us. So she had to balance working at the family business and raising us in Dearborn. And at the time, I was born in the south end of Dearborn on Dix Avenue. That's where we all started. But we migrated to East Dearborn in 1977. I was maybe 78, 79. I was maybe 5, 6 years old. We were one of the first families in East Dearborn, one of the very first.
Okay.
But we earlier in my childhood, work. My father worked. My mother worked, balanced, taking care of us. My father was extremely. What's the word I'm looking for? He had a military type.
Okay.
Of
Very strict.
yeah, raising us.
Mm-hmm.
He was very strict on us. I want to say hard on us
Okay.
in a way where he wanted to see us do good, and he kind of didn't know in a way how to tell us or teach us how to do good. Instead of he'd say it, but kind of like in a strict way.
Did you feel like that put pressure on you?
It did. My father put pressure on me to do well. He really believed in me. I believed in myself. But, sometimes parents take it too far where they may live through you and they don't see it. They want the best for you, but sometimes, you can't be too hard on kids when they're trying to excel in sports. I'm a firm believer that people would tell me, like growing up, people would say, oh, you had your dad behind you. I wish I had somebody behind me because I would have made it in football. I would have made it in basketball if I had somebody behind me. I think that's all BS. They believe that, but I think it's incorrect, I should say, use the right term. It's incorrect. After what I went through, I look back in hindsight and I say, you know what? My father supported me. I appreciate that. He gave me what was needed, and I love him and appreciate for that. But to make it in anything, whether it be sports, academics, whatever you want to do in life, it's got to be you who does it. So the way you're going to do it is it's got to be your passion.
So people would envy you because your father pushed you?
I'm sorry?
People envy you because your father pushed you?
No, I want to say envy.
Maybe not envy is the right word, but like...
They'd say you're lucky you had that somebody behind you, which I was lucky, and I appreciate it.
But do you think your father pushed you beyond what you wanted to be pushed?
No, I think my father just pushed me because he believed that I could do a lot better, and I was the best. He believed I was the best. I believed I was the best as well. But he wanted me to, there was no losing. There was no losing. And it wasn't because you can't lose because he's better than you. He believed in me so much that he didn't think I could lose. If I fought to my ability, then nobody can beat me. So if I fought in a boxing match, and I lost a close decision, it was my fault because I didn't fight to my ability.
Were there consequences for you losing?
There was consequences, yes.
What were
That
the
I don't like, but you know, it was hard. If I lost, like at 10 years old, I had the pressure on me boxing as I would have fighting for a world championship on HBO at 10 years old in a little rec center. It was like equivalent to fighting for a world championship to me, because the pressure, I should say, because if I win, all great. If I lose, I've got to face my father.
What does facing your father mean?
Look, my father wasn't physically abusive to me when it comes to boxing, so I encountered a little verbal, he was and I don't say this in a negative manner to my father, because I love my father and what he did for me, I will appreciate to the day I die.
Of course.
But at the same time, people make mistakes. Him raising us, my brother and my sister, he was the same way with them. He was really hard on us. And I'm sure a lot of other Arab American families have a parent who is that way, so they can relate to what I'm talking about. But my father, if I lost a boxing event, I had to worry about it after the fight. The verbal, like I should have fought better, and then with that came, what's the word I want to look for? There's pressure, a lot of pressure as a kid. And you shouldn't have that pressure as a kid. But with me, it made me better.
Yeah, of course.
It made me so much better.
It'll push you to your limits. It'll make you do better. But do you think at what cost?
At what cost? It takes away the fun of it. The fun of doing. You do want to do something because you love it and it's fun. I loved it so much that even taking away that fun, I still love doing it. Because I knew the consequences. If I lost, there were consequences from my father, most of all. But at the same time, it was worth it to me. And he never hurt me. I shouldn't say that. He never did hurt me. He just, like I said, pressure on me to want to be good, to want to do good, and be the best. And I think that as a kid, I excelled. I won at 13 years old. I was a U.S. national champion for the U.S. At 15 years old, I won it again. At 18 years old, I was U.S. champion. It was 3 times. And I made the Olympic trials. So I was Olympic trials finalist. I went to the finals of the Olympic trials, which is what my father wanted, the Olympics. I held out turning professional earlier because I wanted to wait for the Olympics. I made the Olympic trials. I went to the finals. I lost a close decision to the guy who went to the Olympics. And after that, I decided to turn professional.
Were you scared more of your father's reaction or disappointing your father? Which one was it?
I was more my father's reaction.
Because let's think about the Olympic trials. You said your father really cared about the Olympics.
When it came to the Olympic trials, yeah. I mean, my father, I don't want him. I want him to be. I want to make the Olympics, to make him proud of me of making the Olympics. But I also didn't want to lose, because I knew the consequences to that. By that time, I was 20 years old, so it wasn't like that. It was more when I was younger. But as I got older, my father was still with me in boxing, still supported me. But the consequences were not, as I got older, it started to dwindle.
Do you think that, like most families, if their son told them, I want to go into boxing, especially us immigrant families, they would be very open to it or no? Like professionally? Because you weren't doing it as a hobby. At what point did it stop being a hobby? Like you started
I'm going to tell you right now, honestly, with boxing was never a hobby for me. I knew from the very first day I put on gloves.
Okay.
I remember clearly, 8 years old, I put on the gloves and I hit the bag. And the first day in the gym, I said to myself, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Why?
I loved it. Just loved it. Eat, sleep, drink boxing every day. And to succeed in something, you got to love it so much.
So it was never a hobby for you?
Nah. Boxing was my career. I knew from the beginning that was my goal from day one was to become a world champion. So I knew what I was doing from 8 years old. I had my my why.
Do you understand? Do parents understand at 8 years old their kid coming into the house and telling them, "I want to become a boxer"?
My mother, she kind of stood back and let my father do his thing with us when it came to us boxing.
Okay.
That's what we wanted to do. My father, he took to it because he boxed a little bit. He learned a little bit growing up, and he really liked it. He's not the one that got me into it, though. Mm. I got into it. I started at the Joe Hammoud Center in the south end of Dearborn.
Okay.
Joe Hammoud was a very popular Arab American basketball player in the 70s, and he played college. He may have played it for 1 year in the professional leagues as well in the NBA. And they opened a rec center named after him on Dix Avenue in the South End. And they called it the Joe Hamoud Center. And it was a center where it was city funded, where we would come and stay off the streets where our parents worked. Even though I had moved to East Dearborn, every day my parents would drop me off at my grandmother's because they were working. So instead of being in the streets, they had this rec center. We'd go and shoot pool, do our homework, play games, etc. It was a place to stay off the streets. And then one day they said, you know what, we're going to have boxing as an activity. And then, man, everybody jumped on board. We had about 50 young kids that joined. Some of the guys that you've interviewed even, like from our community, like Emo El Zayat from Amity. He was on the boxing team with us. A lot of the Serenis. We had a lot of guys from the community. Now from the community.
Yeah.
That started. Even Fawad Zayban Walker, the high school football coach.
Yeah.
He boxed with us.
Okay.
He was a couple years older than me, but as kids, he was one of the guys. He was actually good. So we had a few really good fighters. We'd win tournaments, but one by one, people started quitting, going to football, other sports, streets. Before I knew, I was like the final person left at the rec center.
Was it like demotivating when you saw like your peers leaving?
No, I had a vision. I was gonna do this for me, and that's what I wanted to do. So whoever quit, whoever stayed, it is what it is. I really didn't care.
Okay.
I was moving on. I was doing my thing, and I went to from there. I went to a gym called. Well, let me go back a little bit. From there, I went to in Detroit, and they had the projects. It was called Herman Gardens Projects.
Okay.
It was a real low-income area, a lot of crime, but they had a boxing gym in there. It was a little classroom in this little school. I started going there to train, to get some sparring in with other guys. It was myself. It was another guy named Obakar. He was a top fighter. His father trained us. Me and Obakar were winning national championships. And then one day, Emmanuel Stewart, you may not know who he is. If you're a boxing fan or even a sports fan, they'll know who he is. He's probably like the most popular, greatest boxing trainer in history of boxing.
Okay.
He passed away about 10 years ago, but he ran a gym called the Kronk Boxing Gym out of Detroit. That's the home of Thomas Hearns, who's a 5-time world champion, home of several world champions, like 30 world champions. It's the most popular boxing gym in the world. Today, even it is. It's not the same as it was because Emmanuel Stewart is gone, God rest his soul, but he really built an empire, a boxing empire at the Kronk Gym. And he seen myself and my friend Obakar win the national championships. He said, you know what? Come on down to Kronk. I remember, and Kronk was in Detroit. It was a little rec center. It was in the basement. About as big as a classroom, not a little bigger than a classroom. It had a ring on the floor. It had 2 bags. It had about 50 guys in there, and they had the heat up to about 100. And it was all, man, you're going to go in there, you're going to get ready to go throw down. The ring was on floor level. You'd get in there and spar. The guys would get around the ring and, egg you on and instigate the fight. And you'd be going at it. 8, 9 years old, I was going at it with these guys.
That young?
Yeah. I continued there until I was to the Olympic trials. I had 148 amateur fights. I won like 6 state championships at the time, 3 national championships, went to the Olympic trials, and then at 20, I turned professional.
What was the reaction of were you that dialed in to where other people were starting to go their separate ways, right? Career-wise. School was not in the picture for you?
Oh yeah, I always, my father, that's one of the things he always made sure, and that's what I appreciate, is our grades had to be good.
Okay.
Otherwise.
So you didn't compromise your school?
No, I did not. I was really good with school, and I always said I was going to go back to college and get my degree, and I did that. I went back after I retired, I went back to the University of Michigan and got my bachelor's degree in business.
Okay.
Yeah, but when I was boxing, I was excelling in school, but when I turned pro, I didn't have time to go to college when I turned professional. So I was 20 years old, turned professional, and I had my first professional fight at the Palace of Auburn Hills.
Mm.
And at this time, there was no, at the time, look at it, when I turned professional, there were not any other Arabs in the community really doing anything outside the community. You know, going to your podcast, I see what all these people are doing today. We didn't have that 30 years ago. Nothing near it.
It was
30
still
years ago.
survival mode.
Exactly. People were here they were working to survive. Some were excelling. We had families, but you know, not outside of Dearborn. So when I excelled as an amateur and I turned professional, almost the whole city of Dearborn went to the Palace Auburn Hills for my first professional fight. I had so much support from my people. It's unbelievable. And it showed at these events, at the fights. It really showed. Even as an amateur, I had so many people coming out to my fights and supporting me. I'll never forget that.
What do you think about the saying or like the idea that good boxers can only come from families that are very poor?
You know, they say that because they feel like to be hungry, you got to be poor.
Correct.
To be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is where I disagree. Kind of like they say, oh, you had somebody behind you. Just because you're poor is not going to make you a better fighter. I think more families that come from low income have kids that box, because boxing is kind of what they look at as an outlet, kind of, some of the boxers who don't go to school, who have no education, who have no source of income. Maybe this is a way for them to make it, and their families will let them go do it. Where people in middle class or higher class income don't want to see their kids get hit, and they're a little more educated.
Right.
So they kind of shy away. So today you won't see too many kids who have money who start boxing. So it just happens to be the ones who don't. And yeah, they're hungry. They want to get out of the ghetto or out of the hood, wherever they're at. They want to get out of there. But that is not what helps them become champion. Wanting to get out of the ghetto doesn't help you get out of the ghetto. You got to love what you're doing. They got to excel in the sport. And to excel, you better love the hell out of it. So whether you love it poor or you love it as a middle class income or high class or upper income, it doesn't matter. You're going to succeed as long as it's what you love.
I think people look at stories like Tyson and be like, that guy was like literally lived in the trenches.
Yeah, they'll say you have to survive to make it in this business, in boxing. Man, this guy made it because look where he came from.
Mm.
You know, if you want to get technical, Mike Tyson at 13 years old, his trainer, Cus D'Amato, an older white guy, a great trainer, he's in the 70s, took him in and adopted him. So at 13 years old, Mike Tyson was off the streets. But, you know, they'll make it like he was in the streets all his life. He wasn't. But he had no family background. As a kid, he was in the streets. But he loved what he was doing. He loved the sport.
So you're saying that motivation to get out of the streets is not enough for you to leave the streets?
No, because you gotta excel in what you're doing. You gotta love what you're doing. In order to excel, to be good at something, you have to really love what you're doing. Like really love it. I don't care how bad you want to get out of the ghetto. It's like, you know, it's equivalent to, it's like saying, man, I want to be a millionaire. I want it so bad because I come from nothing. I want to be a millionaire. It's not going to make you got to really find something that you love and really want, you know, you can't be a millionaire just by saying it.
Yeah.
You need action.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
So look, if you were to count the amount of screens that you're exposed to or the amount of notifications and distractions around you, in a typical day-to-day situation, there would be so many that it would be very hard to count. So I had that problem, but the most distracting out of all the screens was the screen on my hand. Every time it pinged, I had to check my phone, and checking my phone would take half an hour or an hour, and it was not productive at all. So I went out searching for solutions, and I found Whoop. I wanted a wearable where it would only track my health because in the first place, that's what I got my smartwatch for. I wanted to cut out the distractions and focus on my health. So if you feel like you're going through that problem and you're getting distracted too much and you just want to track your health vitals, because you listen to the podcast, I have a solution for you. You go to join.whoop.com/notfromhere and you try out Whoop for free for 1 month. If you don't like it, you can return it. But I guarantee that it will change your life just like it did mine. And now back to the episode. When do you start making money as a boxer? And because that's something that I think about a lot. Like now the money that we see that like these boxers get is sometimes insane amounts of money. But when you started, did you make money as an amateur? did you, because at the end of the day, okay, this is your career, you're trying to do this professionally, but you still want to start a family, like bills still have to get paid on your end. So how does the money thing work?
Boxing, as an amateur, you don't make any money.
Zero.
Any amateur sports, until now, they just pass a law. Even college football, you can start making money. But prior to this,
Correct.
yeah, in boxing, it's still that way. You can't make any money per se. So you're doing it like you do in high school, sports, etc. Turning pro, it's such a different tier when it comes to pay. As a pro, it's either here or here. Either making big money or you're not making any money.
Oh, really?
That's how it is.
Okay.
I compare it to like the profession of acting. Actors, there's a lot of actors out there.
Right.
But just because you're an actor doesn't mean you're making money.
Mm-hmm.
You got the ones way up here and it comes down here. There's not really, you might have a few in the middle, but it's such a huge difference between someone who makes it or is a world champion and someone who just turns professional. So the key with boxing, if you got to have a name. I came out from the Olympic trials and turned professional. So I had offers from multiple managers out there. So when they're making me offers, they're giving you signing bonuses, they're paying you weekly salaries. So they're going to look out for you. They want to see you make it. So these are the guys, you don't have to work. You concentrate, just train, and they'll take care of your expenses, take care of you, whatever you need, and they're going to look out for you. Versus the opposite, the option where you just turn pro, you don't have a big career, you're not an amateur champion, you just want to turn professional. Good luck, it's going to be tough. You're not going to make any money. You make maybe a couple thousand in a fight, starting out.
So what's the difference? Can you say some numbers just to get an idea?
As far as?
Like starting pay as a professional.
I want to say it this way. You don't make money your first professional fight. You're going to make money off you're making money off your signing bonus. These managers are banking on you making it to the top. So they're
Correct.
investing into you.
Correct.
So the better your amateur career was, the more someone's going to invest into you. So when I turn pro, what you get for the fight is you're not the main event. So you're on the undercard, just to get on the card, just to get a fight and build your record. So you're going to have the manager pay you, because otherwise the promoter is not going to pay you much. So your funds are going to come from your signing bonus, your weekly salary. Like when I turned pro, for example, my manager gave me like $100,000 signing bonus.
Okay.
So you know what I mean? You put that there, you get a weekly salary and build your record.
Okay, that's how it works.
Yeah.
So you still get a weekly salary?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're not going to get that unless you have a name for yourself and you did something in amateur. So you got a weekly salary until you hit that next level.
Yeah.
The next level, you might make 6 figures. You become a world champion, you can make 6 figures or 7 figures, even 8 figures. All depends on your following and how good you are, how exciting you are.
Okay. Do you think though, if you had not gotten paid the way that you would have liked, you would have continued? Because like at that point, what are you weighing more, the boxing career or like the family matters and building a family?
Well, turning pro, I was 20 years old. Turning pro, I was 20 years old. It was only about my career, building my career.
When did you meet your wife?
I got married at 25.
Okay, so not too deep into your career.
Yeah, but when I turned pro, she was with me. She attended my fights, supported me. I got an incredible wife, honestly. She's been with me from the beginning, through all my ups and downs, through all my trials and tribulations, and she's still there. You
need a good support system.
Definitely. And she was her and my mother, the greatest support system I've ever had, and much needed. And I appreciate her for that.
Did your mother kind of freak out at the idea that you were going to get punched in the face as a job? Because the dad is harsh, right? The dad is like, you gotta go out, you gotta do your thing. The mom is a little different. The mom, you're still her little boy. She doesn't want.
My mother back then, she looked at it differently. Like I asked her today, I said, "Ma, how'd you watch me box? Didn't it bother you?" She goes, "I don't know how I did it back then. I didn't know what was wrong. Like today, she would never be able to do it, but back then, she trusted the process. She trusted me, and I was an amateur at the time. Amateur, you're not really gonna get hurt. As a pro, it's a little bit more rough, She would get worried before fights, but she supported me. But that first fight at the Palace, man, Muhammad Ali showed up to my fight.
Really?
So look, when I was a kid, I looked up to Ali,
Yeah.
my idol, growing up as a kid. Muhammad Ali was everything to me. And, you know, I loved him, Ali, not just because we did in the ring, what he did outside the ring, when it came to human rights, when it came to not going to Vietnam, just everything he did outside the ring for the less fortunate made him one of the greatest individuals to ever live. You know, one of the most influential people to ever live. So one time I was probably 10 years old. He was visiting Dearborn, and I went to meet him. He was at a facility, signing autographs and so forth.
How old was Ali at the time? Was he older?
Maybe 51, 52.
Okay.
So I was like 20. No, I'm sorry, go back. He was probably 40, 41 at the time. I was probably 10 years old. He's probably 40. So fairly young, you know. He just retired not a few years before that. And I went to see him, and I wrote him a letter. And I took it with me. I remember walked up to him, and myself, my two cousins. We stood next to him. I gave him the letter. And he went, all right, he put it in his shirt and his jacket, you know. And he said, we took a photo. And the photo, he's sitting down. I'm standing up next to him. And I'm standing up like this, and he's got his fist underneath me. I'm like right here, and he's like that, you know. And I have the photo. I'll show it to you. And I'm like this, took the photo, right? Then he got up to walk away, and I was walking. He said, he pointed, he was, come here, kid. He goes, what's your name? I go, Tarick. He came, he grabbed me he pulled me in close to him. He goes, listen, stay in school, listen to your parents, and stay away from drugs, and you'll succeed in life. But stay in school. He stressed that. I said, man, okay. Oh, thanks. Thank you, Muhammad Ali.
Do you understand the magnitude of the moment at the time?
Yeah, I did. I loved Muhammad Ali. Kind of like how a kid likes LeBron James and Jordan. So compare this, what I'm about to tell you, compare it to Jordan and LeBron today.
Of course.
If the kid walked, all right?
If not greater than...
Great. Nobody can compare to Ali.
Yeah.
Ali, he's more famous than prophets. You know what I mean? He's one of the most 20 influential people to ever live, in my opinion. So that letter I gave him, I left my phone number in that letter. And the very next day, I was getting ready to go to school, and the phone rang. I'm getting chills describing it. The phone rang, and I said, man, I went to answer the phone. Right before I walked out of the house, I said, hello. I heard on the line, I heard, Assalamu alaikum. And I said, you know, I'm 10 years old. I go, who's this? He goes, Assalamu alaikum. I go, alaikum salam. Who's this? He goes, Muhammad Ali. And my heart just started beating, you know. Couldn't believe it. And you know, he talked to me for a good 5 minutes, which is a long time. Think about
It's
it.
a very long time.
5 minutes. Do you know he didn't talk about boxing at all? Not one time did he mention boxing to me.
Did you know that you wanted to become a boxer?
He knew I was a boxer. He knew that's what I wanted. But being 10 years old, he knew first of all, the odds of me being a boxer are probably, you know, slim to none.
Yeah.
You know, becoming a professional boxer or successful at it. But back then, we don't know that. We think we're going to become a champion, and I have a vision for myself. But looking at from him, what he's thinking, obviously, this is a young kid. If I see a kid 10 years old, most likely he's not going to continue a couple more years. If he does, maybe, you know. So he kind of just talked to me about succeeding in life, staying in school, and making something of yourself. And I swear to God, to this day, that never left my mind. Growing up, I always remember that. And he was the reason I think I went back to college afterwards and got my degree and stayed in school and stayed excelling in school. Was because of Muhammad Ali. I'll never forget that. And then throughout the years, I'd write him. This prior to email. You know, I had to write him. I write him back and forth a couple times. Then when I was 20 years old, my professional fight at the Palace, he surprised me in the locker room and walked in for my first pro fight 10 years later.
Wow.
And we took another photo. And in the photo, this time, I'm doing the fist to him. But he's doing the same face, like that face he makes. And I got the photos in my house, like right next side to side, next to each other.
What does he tell you? What do you talk about before the fight?
That
has to put more pressure on you.
Yeah, you know, that was like right before the fight. So he's in the locker room. No, he said, Tommy, do my thing. There's not going to be too much talking before a fight. He's not going to give me a lecture. He just came in there and said, hey, I'm here to support you. Do your thing. And that was it. He went out there, walked out. I ended up knocking out the guy in the first round. I knocked him out like a minute and 30 seconds, a minute and 45 seconds, or something like that. Man, the pressure was on me like never before. One, I'm turning professional. I'm at the Palace. It's 20,000 people there, 18,000 people, whatever it is. It's full. Muhammad Ali is there. I said, there's no way in the hell am I losing this fight. And not only am I not going to lose, you
have to put on a show.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to look better than I ever did. And that pressure, it made me better. And I look back to like, when it comes to pressure like that, there's no such thing. I'm going to give you a story that Mike Tyson's trainer and mentor, the guy who adopted him, he's an older white man. His name was Cus D'Amato. He gave a story. He says there's no difference between a hero and a coward. I heard the story when I was a kid and it always stuck with me. There's no difference between a hero and a coward. They're both scared. They're both afraid. They both have fear. Their actions after they're scared, after they have fear, their actions afterwards is what makes one the hero and one the coward. You know, as a kid, a lot of people would think that, okay, he's not afraid because he's not a coward. That's why he's not afraid. No, he's afraid. He's not a coward because he's still doing it. He's just afraid as that coward is. But who's got the guts to, that pressure you feel is going to either make you better, that fear, or you're going to fall apart. And all great fighters or all great athletes, the pressure makes you better. In training, I didn't fight that. I didn't spar that well in training because the pressure wasn't there. But in the fight with the lights on, it's a different ball game for me.
Wow.
I use that pressure to make me better, And I won't say I'm the best skilled boxer in the world, but I would beat a lot of them because of when that pressure's on me, my will to win.
Yeah.
My will to succeed when I'm under pressure. I work better under pressure.
Not too many people get their heroes watching their first fight.
Yeah, that was incredible, man. And even a couple of years after that, maybe a year after that, he visited a charity event. I went up and made a speech on him. He was at the event, and I made a speech for him about what he meant to me and what he went through. So he had a real mark on my life that I cherish to the day I die.
A lot of people, he has a mark on a lot of people's lives, but not too many people can say they've had those kind of interactions with him. You get to meet him at 10. He calls you the day after. He watches your first professional fight.
Yeah, I was blessed from God. Thank God. God has a plan, It's in my, what's the word I'm looking for? When your future, like, God has it written for you,
Yeah, maktub.
Yeah. Although I feel that whatever's written, God gives you free will to make it happen.
Right.
So, I had a pro career that went on for about
You
7
didn't
years.
lose for a long time. Your first 16 fights, all wins.
So, 18.
16?
18, 9.
You were 19-3.
Yeah.
I think
Actually 20-3. One of my fights, there wasn't, I don't know why it's not posted in the thing, but it's actually 20-3 to get technical. But I was actually, 19-0 before I lost? 18-0? I forgot what it was. I was rated 6th by WBC and 4th by WBO, which are major boxing organizations. And I sat for 2 years in the top 10.
when you don't lose for that extended period of time, do you kind of think that, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this until I explode? Or is it still, let me do this one fight at a time?
No, at that point, I'm in the top 10. I'm doing this to get my shot at the world championship. I'm looking for a world championship. I'm fighting to stay alive, to fight for a world championship. So every fight is the biggest fight in my life.
What was the goal intended? Were you planning on just becoming a world champion, retiring, or world champion and carrying that championship?
That's a good question. Very good question, because you just brought up something that I look back now in hindsight and look back and I say to myself, I was one that had something to fall back on. Okay, my school, business. I always had something. I wasn't just depending on boxing, but sometimes, you know, sometimes you don't want to have nothing to fall back on. Because sometimes when you're against the wall, you're more likely to achieve your goal and succeed, rather than when something goes wrong, you always have something to fall back on. So I really, even though I had that and people instilled that in me, as I got older, looking back, I don't think any kid should have something to fall back on.
No plan B.
No, they should go to college, no matter what. Doesn't mean go to college. They can always do plan B later on.
Yeah.
You know, but when you have that plan B sitting there, it's a lot easier to like, take your foot off the gas a little bit, you know, when things get tough.
Why do you say that now?
Because I had all the talent in the world to become a world champion, to become not just a world champion, to become one of the greats. And Emmanuel Stewart who I told you is one of the greatest trainers I ever lived, will tell you. He even said, he was quoted as saying that I was one of the best amateur boxers to ever come out of the Kronk gym, which is a very loud statement. And he believed in me. But sometimes when you get into professional business, it's not a clean business. There's no national sanction and organization that oversees it. So a lot of false promises are made. That's not an excuse though. At the time, it could be an excuse when you're going through rough times. You know, you can allow that to take away your passion. So looking back, I allowed the frustration of the business get to me. I was in the top 10 for 2 years. I signed for a world championship fight. Went to training camp for it, and the trainer got hurt in training. They canceled the fight, never rescheduled. I was hanging around top 10 for 2 years. And at this time, you know, I'm not fighting. I'm kind of getting shelved. This is the business side of it. I wasn't making any money really. So I was really frustrated, hanging around for 2 years. And it came to the point where I said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm walking away.
Oof.
At 29 years old.
Very young still. You still have a couple years. You can still go a couple years at that point.
I could still go 10 more years at that
Yeah.
point. You know, I wasn't beat up or nothing. So I walked away. You know, I was investing in real estate a little bit at the time. Got into the real estate business.
Was that your plan B? Did you know you wanted to do real estate?
No.
Okay.
I didn't know. Well, let me take that back. I always had real estate was always there I always invested here and there in real estate. Did I know it was going to be a career of mine? No, I didn't know that. But I got out of there and got into the real estate business more and more, investing. Then and I started selling stuff. So I said, you know what? Let me get my broker's license. I got my broker's license just first out of helping people out that I knew. I got my broker's license just to have it. One thing led to another, and I ended up opening my brokerage, my real estate brokerage.
You're still fighting at this point, or this is after?
No, I'm sorry. I was looking now. At the time, no. I was just investing. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. At the time, I was investing. I walked away from boxing. Got into the real estate business. I was always into it. Got into it more. Got into it deeper, and yeah, I got my broker's license. Then about 3.5 years after I retired, I was in the real estate business, done with boxing.
You're not even thinking about it?
Not even thinking about it.
Were you still training?
Nope.
Oh, you even stopped training?
Stopped training. I'm a little pudgy at the time. I was 32 years old. I was weighing about 180. I wasn't fat, but I wasn't in shape by any means. I'm doing my thing with real estate. One day I'm driving. This is like 2004. I'm driving in West Denver. West Dearborn. I get a phone call, and it was a producer, Mark Burnett, who produces he's the biggest producer in the world. Produces Survivor, Apprentice. He goes, and he's from England. He's got that English accent. He goes, "Hello, Tarick. This is Mark Burnett." Explained himself to me, and he says, "This is what I couldn't believe." He says to me, he goes, "I got Sylvester Stallone on the phone here with me." All of a sudden, I hear, "Hey, how you doing?" Bad impersonation, but you know what I mean. "Hey, how you doing?" I says, "Man," so I'm thinking somebody's pranking me now. What the hell's going on here?
It's just a random day.
Yeah, it's a random call. Nobody told me that they're going to be calling you. This is random, totally random. And Mark Burnett's telling me that they're doing a reality show about boxing. And they like my story. You know, I didn't get my shot when I should have had my shot. They looked into my background. Like, we want you to be part of this event, this show. It's like a tournament we're going to do. It's going to be on NBC. It's going to be called the Contender. And this is all just spur of the moment. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll look into it. I'll be interested. So they said, we're sending our guy to Detroit. We're gonna do like a little tryout thing, but we want you to go over there and talk to them, the casting director, and go down there and meet them. So they come down to Detroit and downtown. I go down there, and they never see me fight, so I bring like at the time I brought a tape with me. Not even CD or tape. Well, maybe it was a tape. I don't know.
Yeah.
CD or whatever it was. Or DVD, I'm sorry. They said, I bring it down there, and they talked to me and said, oh, you know what? We want you to box. We want to see you boxing. I go, I haven't done anything in 3.5 years.
Like they don't want to watch tape. They want to actually
yeah. I go, it's right here. It was like dust on there. I go, it's right here. They go, no, you got to get in the ring. I go, what? I go, I don't got my stuff. They go home and get it. I'm like, okay. I went home and got my stuff. I come back, and Stallone, there was a casting director there, and another boxing guy there doing for the show, watching the fighters, etc. So I came back, got my stuff. They line us up, and they said, okay. And I remember I haven't boxed. I go, oh, geez, who are they gonna put me in there with? This is a big thing right here. You got guys who are active, heavier guys, some good fighters too, that I know. Mm. And they go, all right, you fight you. They're matching guys up, and pretty soon it's me and there's two other guys. There's a big built guy, African-American, friend of mine, he's like heavyweight, active, all right? And next to him you got the white guy from Livonia, not in great shape. And I was like, okay, please pick the Livonia guy. they choose the Livonia guy.
Oh, did they?
So I got in there, did my thing. I looked pretty good in there. I only went one round. But, it's like a bike. You don't forget. But I couldn't breathe after the first round. I'm so tired. And they're like, yeah, you know what? I want to see you go second round. I go, I go, I'm done. You said one round? I give it my all. I'm out. They go, all right, go talk to the casting director upstairs. I went upstairs, talk to the casting director for like an hour or so.
What's the idea of the show? It's a reality TV show. But from everything I watched, was it like you guys had to actually fight? Like, was it actually boxing or was it acting boxing?
No, it was actually boxing. But I'm going to tell you what they did with it. What made it like that? If you watch a show, you'll love it.
I watched a couple clips of you on the show.
If you watch the actual episode, like one of the episodes, what they did was Stallone got together with Mark Burnett and said, we want to do a drama, like a Rocky type of drama, about their lives, about their families. Boxing is the last 5 minutes. You see how they do it. They make it like a movie. You hear the sound effects. But no, you're actually fighting. But prior to that, they took 16 guys. They housed us in a loft in California. They took our families out there and they got them houses in the area. But they live on their own. We'd be in the house with them. We'd have no phone or nothing. So you're with them 24 hours. They're watching 24/7.
You're being recorded 24/7. Maybe not directly, but no, that it's the environment.
You got 6 camera crews, 24 hours.
Yeah.
So they'll pop in every once in a while. Like if you're talking to someone, they hear what you're saying too. They can always hear what you're saying all day. So if you talk about something interesting, all of a sudden you hear cameras coming. They're running down the hall. They're on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you couldn't get away from that part. If you want to go see your family, you have to get permission. Then they drive you. Let you spend the night. But ultimately, what they want us to do is live together, train together. Then when we get ready to fight, we go. If it's my day to fight, I go visit my family the day before and stay with my family. They want to see you interact with your wife, with my daughter. My daughter was 2 years old at the time, and my wife, daughter, they flew out there, got them a home in LA. And before my fight, I go visit them, and the cameras would follow you. And to see interaction with my daughter, my wife, what I'm saying, what I'm feeling. If you watch my clip, you'll see where I had she was like 2 years old at the time. That was the day before the fight at the house. Next day, they're at the fight the next day.
How much does it play in your psyche? Because what's the goal? What's the prize at the end of the reality show? What do you win?
$1 million.
Okay.
Your career skyrockets.
Okay. $1 million, your career skyrockets. In your head, you're competing in this show. Are you competing to win or are you competing to entertain?
All right. Of course, I'm always competing to win.
Okay.
But I knew going in, and I was confident. But no, I wanted to win. Don't get that wrong. I wanted to win. But after I lost, I thought I would be very disappointed. I wasn't disappointed when I lost because I knew that coming in, I hadn't fought in 3.5 years. I was inactive. I had to drop 20 pounds. I had to get down to 158 for the show. I had to drop 25 pounds for the show, almost 30 pounds, and get in fight shape within 2 months. And these guys are active fighters, so your time at that level, when you get to that world class level, timing is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the split second timing, well, I can beat normal guys easily, but when you get to that top level, that split second, you know.
Right.
So I ended up losing a close decision to the fighter I fought, but I wasn't hurt. I wasn't upset. I like to say I won. I might have lost the battle, but I won the war per se because I hurt the guy. It was only 5 rounds because we had to fight. It's not a show. Usually we were 10 rounds. It's 5 rounds only.
Yeah.
He was doing little points, but I kind of like hurt him. I caught him. He actually left the show after my fight. He didn't even stick around because he was hurt, but he just won a close decision.
Do you feel like the cameras distract you from the main goal of the fight, or were they kind of not distracting?
The cameras, when you're on a reality show, did not. It's not going to distract you, no. But being housed with 16 guys every single day affects you. It affects everyone differently. So I like to say that if those fights that took place on the show took place outside the show and we didn't know each other, it would have been different results. Because when you live with somebody, you start respecting people more, or people
Right.
start fearing you more. So it's a mental game. Boxing's a mental game like anything else. The will to win, nothing beats that.
But it's cool having Sylvester Stallone in the house. Was he with you?
Yeah,
in the same
Sylvester
house?
Stallone and Sugar Ray Leonard
Sugar
was
Ray
one of the
Leonard.
greatest fighters ever.
Yeah.
One of my favorites ever. So they were hands-on. So Stallone he loves boxing. So he was with us hands-on, every day communicating with us, hanging out with us, training with us. It was cool. At the fights with us. Every episode, different celebrities. It was a close set, so different celebrities will pop into the fights. So no one could know the results.
Yeah.
Because we filmed this, and like 8 months later it aired. The only thing we knew the final 2.
Okay.
And that was going to be live. It was 16.
Oh, the final would be live?
Yeah, so
Okay.
We filmed, for example, in September. It aired the following April.
Okay.
But end of May 25th was the finale, the final 2 that we knew the whole time. They ended up fighting the final 2. But we couldn't say anything coming back after the show.
Contracts, NDAs, all of that.
And they won't let us fight. Yeah, to the show, so they were paying us good.
Okay.
So you had to not fight just till the show, after the show aired. But I'll tell you what, man, the show came on, first episode, whatever, started building momentum. It's a great show. I'm not saying it because I was on it. It was just a high budget where they had like DreamWorks involved, Steven Spielberg.
The production was insane. Like, you
crazy.
see how the fight
the
was. I
time-
was like, this looks like a movie. This is not a fight.
Yeah. At the time, it was the highest budgeted reality show in history at the time. It did very well worldwide. So the finale, this is what I was getting at. The first episode, prior, people from the boxing world knew who I was, boxing world. But outside the boxing world, not really, because, I wasn't a world champion yet. But being on the show changed all that. So the finale came in, we're flying into Vegas for the finale. They're like, you know what? We're going to land, we got you a security guard. I'm like, for what? For security? Okay, why not? So we go to Vegas. People flew in like from England, Central America, all Europe. It was huge over there. And they'd be like, man, we know you. Everyone knows you personally in England. You got to come to England. They got to know you as people because of the show. The way
Right.
The format was, you got to know the person. Everyone had their own personal favorite, etc. on the show. So it changed the whole aspect of boxing. So a lot of people who watched it, especially females who were not boxing fans, loved it because of the drama aspect of it.
And you were the only Arab on the show.
You want to hear something crazy? 16 guys, and we had 2 Arabs on the show.
2 Arabs.
The other one was Ahmed Kaddour
Yeah.
from Denmark, Lebanese. He was a good fighter.
Does this part of you where, okay, I'm on this like high budget, insane show, I'm also Arab, I still have to represent my people, does that come to mind or not really?
Big time. At the time, because we were just coming off this is 2005.
Yeah.
We're coming off 9/11. Muslims, Arab have a bad rap. So in a sense, I think I worried a little bit too much about it to where I kind of watching myself, what I say, what I do, because which I shouldn't have done, because you kind of like put yourself, you know what I mean? You got to do what you got to do and say what you got to say. But I was always, man, I'm representing my people. I want people to look good, etc. I got to watch what I say, watch what I do. A little too much to where times when I would have said something, I may have not said it.
Okay.
Which would have been good for the show. They noticed it because they know me. Off camera, they go, man, you're great, but on camera, he goes, you're holding back on camera. And I would tell him, he goes, don't worry about that. You know, after the show, they're like, you can't worry about that kind of stuff. But yeah, going on, I said, man, America's going to see Arabs here, and what are they going to think? You know, I want a positive image. In the loft with us, the other boxers that were there, some of them never met an Arab in their life or Muslim in their lifetime. And I was the very first person they met who was Arab or Muslim. And they were like, what? You're just like us.
Yeah.
We didn't know that. We didn't think that. We never met any Arabs. We just get what we hear from the media. Terrorists, mean, and all that. And it's furthest from the truth. And they seen that. But I also seen something. I noticed something beyond that show. Because you're with guys for 2 months, day in and day out. It'll take you maybe 10, 15 years to get to know somebody that well.
Yeah.
You really get to know somebody inside and out. They're brothers for life. But at the same time, I got to see that no matter how different we are, we're the same.
We're all the
core.
same.
I'm talking about different. Like I had a guy from Tennessee, spoke with the biggest Southern accent, walked around with cowboy boots, cowboy hat, and probably would never even speak to me outside of that show or look at me or, you know. We blended in and got along great. The guy ended up loving me.
Yeah.
I love the guy.
We're all the same.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all the same, man. It's all these little cultural things and religious things trying to make us different. But our core is exactly the same.
We all go through the same problems.
1,000%.
It's the same life for everyone.
It is. You know, even one guy, this is a boxer. He's an Italian guy from New York. He comes from an all-Italian neighborhood. I go, where are you from? New York, what part? He told me the part. I go, how is it there? I said, he goes, oh, I can't wait to leave. I go, why? He goes, oh, people talk about people this, that. I go, you sound like Dearborn.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, I told him, I go, look, when you get too big, when the community gets too big, you get the good, bad, and ugly, unfortunately. Right. But you still have way more good. It just, you know, bad speaks loudly. But going back, even like I said, 30 years ago, we were much smaller than we are now. We were big, but not nearly as large as we are now, the community. And when you're smaller, you tend to stick together more. Yeah. Much more. Instead of seeing the good and bad and ugly, we've seen the good only.
And to your point, there's this study where like the human brain naturally goes towards remembering the bad stuff first. Like take it, and now you just described it as a community where we like to talk about the bad, but it's even like in your relationships with your friends, you're more likely to think about the bad stuff that they've done to you rather than the good. It'll take you a little longer to find something good than something bad. It's how, unfortunately, our brain works like that, you know? So we do focus on the bad a lot.
One sin covers 100 good.
Tariq, let's talk a little bit about your first loss, because we just talked about how it was a very long time until you lost for the first time professionally. Now, when you lose for the first time professionally, does it kind of play with your head like, oh, wait, am I getting worse? Because you haven't lost yet on that professional level.
That wasn't the case.
Okay.
I lost a controversial decision when I did lose. And there's a lot behind the story, but it was more so that frustrated. Remember the 2 years I was shelved? I didn't fight for a championship.
Right.
It was more based off of that.
Okay.
Anything else. And when I lost that, I kind of like, man, I'm just frustrated and walked away. And again, I could say, oh, I didn't become a world champion because of this. And I have legit excuses. But at the end of the day, nobody can stop you from attaining your goal if you really want it. You know, I allowed that frustration to take that passion away from me without knowing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can't force yourself to keep the passion. But when you lose the passion for something, find something else that you love, that you have a passion for. Especially with boxing. If you do it half-assed, you're going to get hurt. You know, you got to do it like 100% or don't do it at all.
Can I ask you a personal question?
What's up?
A lot of people would say that for them to look at Tariq as successful, he should have been world champion. And especially with these very niche careers, like you talked about boxing being, it's very slim chances for you to become one of the best. Like talk about modern day Floyd, Canelo, Ryan Garcia, like all these guys, very slim chances. There's a lot of professional boxers out there. Very slim chances you're going to be one of those 5 guys that are mentioned in every household. Does it bother you that people might look down on your career because you never made it to that level?
No. That was my goal. I wanted to get to that level. I think, you know what? I feel like I get more praise, believe it or not, from boxers and former boxers than people outside of boxing, because I did something with my life, with my career after boxing, that they look to that and respect that more than people looking at what I did in my boxing career. No, people, what I did in my boxing career, believe it or not, they look at it and be like, man, you had a great career. Nobody looks at it and, man, why didn't you win a championship?
Boxers would know that because they know how difficult it was. Like
they know
people on the outside wouldn't understand how difficult it was to be on that strict regimen.
Yeah, but boxers also know how difficult it is to, after boxing, to have a life after boxing.
Absolutely.
That's the hardest part for boxers to have. Harder than actually becoming a world champion is what do you do afterwards. And a lot of these guys, like I said, they come from low income areas, maybe have never gone to school, don't have nothing to fall back on or even to start, and don't know what to do. And a lot of fighters are left broke. Guys that had millions.
There's a crazy stat of like an insane percentage of athletes go broke right after they retire.
There is. It's sad. They're not taught financials, what to do with their money, bad investments, people with their hand out, family with their hand out, and you're young, you feel like you have to help everyone. And you're giving and giving and giving, and pretty soon there's nothing left for you, and your career is over. So it's a small window, and you got to make the most out of that window when you're boxing and what you're making financially. You got to make the most out of it.
But like the people outside, it never bothered you that they looked at you and like, Tariq never become world champion. He boxed all this time, and he retired, and that was it for him. It doesn't bother you?
No, not at all. It doesn't bother me that I did. It doesn't bother me that I did not become a world champion. I would love to, but it doesn't bother me that I didn't.
So it doesn't sting in the back of your head at all?
No, I mean, in the beginning it did, but as I get older, it's a sport, you know. It's boxing, it's a title, you know.
Looking back, what would you have done differently?
To be honest, looking back, if I could, I wouldn't have allowed that frustration. I would have did my best to not allow that frustration of boxing, the politics side of it, to get to me and take away my ambition and my drive and my passion to become a world champion and continue to box. I allowed that to take to me. And that's okay. I ended up doing something else. I love real estate. I'm in the real estate world now. I love that. I moved on from the boxing world. I'm still involved. I'm not going to say I moved on. I still manage boxers, help out fighters, give them advice. I want to see a young Arab American make it. Hopefully one day they will.
So that love for boxing really never went away?
No, I love boxing. Look, loving it, having passion is two different things, you know.
Yeah.
The passion to do it and loving it is two different things. But boxing has opened a lot of doors for me in business and, you know, throughout this in general.
Nice connections.
Oh yeah, I've met so many people from the boxing world, and I've been able to give back to the community. You know, I've worked in programs with the kids. I've done the DARE programs. I've done an anti-drug campaign with the Wayne County Health Department back in the day. I used to go into schools talking to kids. I ended up, when I got into business a little bit, kind of like stepping away from that, not intentionally without realizing it, but I'm getting back into the, I have my foundation, the Tarick Salmaci Foundation, where we work with kids. And right now we're working on opening a rec center and instilling academics with it. So it's going to be like a boxing gym.
Okay.
Nothing big, a small boxing gym where kids can go box. In order to box, they have to keep their grades a certain level. And we're going to have tutors there for them as well, academics. But kids can come who don't want to box And
Just
come,
education.
Yeah, and come there and hang out there if they want to, and
Okay.
get tutored. It's being done right now. There's a gym in Detroit. It's called the Downtown Boxing Gym.
Okay.
They're doing that on a real large level right now. It's a really big success. But we need something for our people here in Dearborn. And I've been saying forever that I've always wanted to open a gym. I finally bit down now and like, you know what? Let's do this. It's in the works right now. Looking for a location and hopefully get this open.
What does boxing do to like, let's say there's a dad out there that's listening right now, right? And he's not sure what sport to put his kid in. Why should the dad consider boxing?
Boxing gives kids discipline like nothing else. Organization, discipline, keeps them in shape, teaches them self-defense, and it really,
I feel like it boosts confidence.
oh, heck yeah, disciplines them, confidence, all of it. I never had to go out there and prove myself to anybody. I've always been humble when it comes to that. Where other guys want to go out there and, oh, look at me and start trouble and get the attention. My attention was in the ring. I got my attention, you know. Since I won the championship at 13 years old. I had my first boxing interview on Channel 7 News at 13. I still have that video. It's at Joe Hammoud Center. It was a great experience, man. Boxing career was a great experience. And I was able to do a lot outside of the ring with it.
So I know you don't have a son. If you had a son and he told you, Baba, I want to do boxing.
No.
Why?
It sounds like I just contradicted myself. I
Yeah.
told you earlier. If I had a son, I would probably train him just to learn the self-defense and the training part of it. But to go actually box, I wouldn't want my kid to box. Like I said, maybe as an amateur he can try it as an amateur, but because I don't want the chance of him going to becoming a professional.
Why?
It's dangerous. Any contact sport, whether it be football, boxing, you're getting hit in the head. You know, people always think like, okay, I had a long boxing career. What happened with me mentally? You know, I have a good friend of mine. He told me, and I never knew this. Recently, he told me this. He said, you know, Tarick, he goes, I got people who ask me, like sometimes, because they know I'm good friends with you, they'll ask him, how is he mentally? You know, they don't talk, they don't know me. They just know I boxed. You know, and he tells them, you know what, he's sharp. You know, knock on wood, thank God. You know, it hasn't affected me as of yet. I hope it doesn't. But then again, I wasn't a fighter. I took a lot of punches. I never been knocked out. I never suffered a concussion in my life, thank God. So I think the chances are that I'm going to be okay. On the flip side, when it comes to boxing or football or contact sports, everybody reacts to punishment differently. Okay, whether it be even people that smoke cigarettes, punished in their body. Some people can smoke to 100 years old. Some people with 10 years, they die of cancer. Same thing with boxing. You know, some people can get hit and take punishment. They're fine. Others can take a little bit of punishment and not be fine.
Brain damage.
Yeah, everybody's different.
concussions.
How many guys do you know get in a car accident, they tap their head, they're dead. Some guy has a truck run over their head and they're fine. So everybody reacts differently. So it's a gamble, kind of, in a sense, when it comes to that part of it.
You wouldn't want your son to
No.
take that gamble.
No, I want him to learn self-defense, but concentrate on doing something else because of not just that, the business side of it as well. A lot of good can come out of boxing, but
It's dirty.
the amount, it's such a small amount,
Mm.
you know. And myself, being on the Contender really changed my career. You know, I was in the top 10 before that, fighting on ESPN and all that stuff, but being on that NBC show, it changed my life. And they told me that when I was on the show. They said, hey, your life's going to change from here on out. And it changed for the better. It helped me a lot. And I took advantage of it.
Talk to me about the worst day, like the hardest day of your career. Let's talk about that.
A few things pop in my mind, but I want to know what you mean when you say
Mentally, like one day where mentally you reached your breaking point.
2 occasions. I told you already the first one when I was in the top 10 for 2 years and I went through all that frustration and not getting a chance to fight for the world championship, not being active like I wanted to be. I just kind of walked away. It was very frustrating. But prior to that, it happened when I was 13 years old. And as a kid, you might get frustrated. You want to quit boxing. Everyone wants to quit. They might quit and come back 10 times. Who knows? I was a kid, but my father wouldn't allow us to quit. And I loved boxing, but there was a time when I was like, you know what? Then I might have just been talking out of spur of the moment. I quit. I'm done with this. I'm not boxing no more. One time I said that, and my father, I was a 3-time national champion. So in my house, I had the belts I won. And as a kid, what are you fighting for? Trophies, right? I had one of those things with the trophies like crazy all over the place, And I told my father, this is how much my father wanted me to succeed. This is how much I'm going to say this, how much he loved me. And you're not going to think it's love, but I'm going to tell you how much he loved me. When I told him I quit boxing at 13 years old, he broke every single one of my trophies and belt. I swear to God. I think I react that way. But you know what? I was a kid. I think the reason why I'm reacting that way is because my father recently passed away 2 months ago. So I've told people that story before, but I never ever. I never got emotional about it. But I love my father. Honestly, he wanted the best for me. And as a kid, I didn't see that, but when I got older, I seen it.
Yeah, take your time.
Yeah, that was the only other time I remember. That was the only other time that I can remember my father. I mean, me feeling that way about boxing, where like I wanted to quit when he did that. I was just really. It kind of instilled more hunger in me when that happened. And my father did after he did that. I remember, I was 13, 14 years old, so I was upstairs. I came back down. I looked. After it all happened, I was crying. I went upstairs, and I looked down. I peeked. My father was on the sofa. He was just sitting there. He was crying because of what he did. And when I seen him cry, I was like, you know what? I know he didn't mean it from the heart, And I forgave him right there on the spot, believe it or not. I was okay with it. At the end of the day, those are just material things. And I think what came out of it was more positive than negative, because I seen a different side of my father. I never seen that side of him where he never showed us that. I had to sneak him to see that. When I looked down, I see him crying. He would never do that in front of us. Yeah. So I seen that side of my father, and it made me more hungry. What he did.
Seeing your father cry is not easy.
No, heck no. Not my father. Ask anybody who knows me and knows my father growing up. My father was. Let me tell you a typical day for me. And people wonder why. Okay, the kids that grew up in my neighborhood, on my block, know this, and they say, "Man," because they'll say, "Hey, you know what your father did was incredible." Again, you have to do it yourself. But my father, I give him credit for keeping me off the streets and keeping us in check, in line. Our day consisted. Let me tell you what we consisted of. I'm probably 12 years old, 7th grade, 8th grade, junior high. I'm playing in a football team. I played all sports as a kid. I was boxing, and we had to excel in school. So my day would be, I go to school I think it was 2:15, 2:30. From there, go to football practice from like 3 o'clock to 4:30. From there, go to the boxing gym from like 6 to about 8, 7:30. Then from there, we had to do every day. We had to do a workout routine, exercises, and with my father every single day, no matter what, if we went to the gym or not, we had to do these exercises every day. And these exercises were not like, okay, stretch, go run. No, these exercises were 500 sit-ups, 500 push-ups, 500 knee bends, 500 of everything. After I went to football, just went to boxing gym. Then that took another hour and a half. And then I had to do my homework. And that was every single day. Then the summertime came, we're off school, then guess what? You're off school. You don't got school. Take a book right there, read it, and start writing what you read. write. For a couple hours a day, you had to do it. Couldn't go outside. You have to write. Then you have to do that workout. If you're not, even going to the gym, you still have to do that workout. I hated that workout. Because, usually, we had to cheat because you can't do 500 push-ups every single day.
Yeah.
But he'd say 500. We're doing close to it. I don't know what we were doing. And he'd watch us sometimes. Or he'd tape us sometimes. We had our little gym in the basement. So he really put time into it with us and made sure that we were on the straight path.
So to me, this became just so much more fascinating because you talked about your father since the beginning of our conversation. And now when you look back at it, you look back at his life and what he had to go through. And now he's not here anymore. What are kind of reflections you do as his son, like just to learn from him?
I learned from my father, but I didn't have a great relationship with my father. But I learned from him, and I appreciate my father. As a kid, we were very, very close as a kid, but he was very hard on me, so I really didn't like him too much as a kid. And when I got older, as an adult, he didn't know how to, at the time, this is like 20 years ago, he didn't know how to allow me to become an adult, verbally, etc. I got to a point where I didn't really have a relationship with my father for 10 years after I got old as an adult. And I recently, probably 3 years ago, we reconciled. And don't get me wrong, when I say reconciled, I was never angry at my father. I never disrespected him. If I seen him, even when I wasn't talking to him, if we ran into him, I'd say hello to him all the time. My father, I always respected him. But we didn't have a relationship for like 10 years because he didn't know how to, I was an adult. He kind of didn't know how to treat me as an adult until later on he kind of understood and woke up from that. And we became, we reconciled a few years ago, and we had a good relationship. And then he just passed away a couple months ago.
Did that make his passing harder?
It actually made it easier because I made up with him. We reconciled. Had I not reconciled, it probably would have been a lot harder, a lot more difficult, I should say. But I was good with it. I'm going to tell you something. Wallah, my father, he wasn't religious at all, but he was a good person. Good people, never did bad to anyone. And what made it easier for me was my father, he had cancer, okay? He had leukemia. He was diagnosed in December of 2023.
Right now?
2023,
yeah.
A few months ago. By March, he was gone, beginning of March. So we got December, by March, he was pretty much, pretty much gone by March. That was like towards the end. But when he passed away, when he was at the hospital, the last day when he was on the bed, right before he passed away, and my family was there. We were all there, and this made it a little bit easier. It's crazy what happened too. I swear to you, I'm telling you the truth. When you have cancer, they're going to give you chemo. When you give you chemo, your white blood cells go so low. When people don't feel, do you know anybody who suffered through it and you've been around them? Anybody that suffered through cancer? Hopefully not.
Not directly.
So indirectly,
Yeah.
kind of like all my life was indirect. But when you come someone hands-on, you're going to see the firsthand what it's about. I'm sure you heard chemo takes away the energy, they're weak, you heard that. But when they say weak, the white blood cells drop so low that you have no, you can't even blink. It's so hard to blink. You can't even lift a finger, So here he is on his deathbed, just like the day he died, he can't move. And he's kind of like gasping for air, in a way he's starting to suffer. And he didn't look good. And we were there, and before he passed away, I swear to you, he looked up like he's seen something. And he said, he looked, and he went, Allahu Akbar, 4 times, Allahu Akbar, and he died. I swear. We couldn't believe it. And I told the doctor, I said, he can't move. And they blamed that on before you pass, a spur of energy or something comes out. I don't know what they said, but I go, anybody else do that before? No, they didn't see that happen before. And when he did that and he passed away, he looked better than he ever looked in his life, healthier. He looked like he looked good. He looked like he was sleeping. And a minute before, he looked like he was suffering. And I knew right there that was God's way of saying, I got him. Even though he wasn't religious, that was a way of saying, I'm going to take care of him. It felt good. It helped a lot.
Allah yarhamah.
Yeah. Give me a breakdown a lot, bro. Wallah. I've never done this in an interview ever. Well, you know what? One with the Contender, but they get you at the right moment. When you're on the Contender, you're in the loft with them, and you go fight. If you lose, you don't come back and get your stuff. So you're with these guys every day, right? You know them like brothers. Then they lose, they're gone. It's like they died. We're like, what the heck happened? You don't know where they went. We know you go to a different house or something. We call it the loser's mansion. And like, man, you're gone. So when you fight, they take out the back door and you're gone, you know. But before you go, you go into all this emotional thing, right? You get dressed, we're in the locker room, and they have a camera and a stool. They go, we're going to give you an exit interview. Sit down right here. You're emotional. You just lost. You just fought. They put on. There's nobody in the locker room. Like, it's empty. And he goes, I go, okay, what do you want to ask me? He goes, I'm not going to ask you any questions. He goes, I want you to talk to the camera. I'm leaving. He left, the producer. I go, just talk to the camera. Talk what you feel. Man, at that point, if you on the Contender, each episode at the end, after the you lost, towards the end before the credits, you're gonna see that interview, and you're just talking to the camera, what you feel, and you're emotional, very emotional in that video. And there was some great interviews in that, really good interviews. And that one guy from East LA, you know, he came from nothing. He's like, man, he goes, my mom got to go back to work now. She's got to ride the bus. You know, just breaking down, crying. It's difficult.
Yeah.
That was only the time I ever got emotional on camera.
Well, inshallah, he's in a better place.
No, he is. Inshallah, he is.
And look, I think as long as you take what your father did and you learn from it and you grow from it, then inshallah it was all for the better.
Yeah, it was, man.
Thank you,
Inshallah,
Tariq, so much. This was a very nice conversation. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for having me.